All right, hey guys, what's happening? Ted O'Keefe. I wanted to do a quick little uh, um, conversation about someone you should be following. His name's Patrick Bet-David, and a question that came out. He's the owner of Valuetainment. Just sold his company for I think multiple nine figures. It's undisclosed. Iranian-born immigrant came over. Bootstrapped his business from like zero and built an army of about 27,000 insurance agents and just recently sold that company. But what he's doing, which is pretty amazing in itself, but what he's doing now in media and interviews and in his podcast over at Valuetainment and the PBD podcast, you just got to check out, right? So something caught my attention, which made me want to shoot this quick little video was there was an article or someone wrote, is Patrick Bet-David worth $200,000 for 1 hour consultation? At least I believe it was 1 hour consult. It might have been a half day. I don't know how he is structuring that right now. And my initial response is, of course he is. Of course he is, for the right person. And whoever wrote that article has obviously never been an entrepreneur, has never hired a consultant, has never taken advice from a consultant, has never, obviously has the perspective that is required to even realize that that's kind of a silly question. And so what I want to share real briefly is that the reason why $200,000 to the right person is a no-brainer is the same reason why, if you're not creating two lists, and let me explain this. You should have two lists that you're always creating. One is the people I'm looking to learn from and grow with, and leapfrog and keep time collapsing my own growth. And you should have the people that you can hire today, and then you should have the list of people that I'd like to learn from and grow from and hire in the future. And because if you ever talk to anyone who's very successful, who's fast moving, who's getting stuff done, and you ask who you're learning from, they should always have somebody. I have found that thinking about like two people in my life that they will say, well, I really don't hire consultants, but they're voracious learners and testers. So they're getting the data from a lot of testing they're doing, but they're learning from people and they're modeling people all the time. But the majority of people, I would say, are always looking to hire consultants. And so I want to talk briefly about that, because this is going to help you with who to hire, when to work with people versus, and also this is what a lot of your clients are going through, okay? Or your potential clients, your prospects, customers. These are the same decision chains that they're trying to think through. And also the third part that I think would be valuable for you just in this brief conversation is, and we're going to go back to Patrick Bet-David here in a second, is how you should be positioning your thinking towards your prospects when it comes to money and time, and money and leverage, and money and shrinking their cost of continuing to do things wrong versus their speed at which they're going to have a bridge over, their learnings. And it could be years, decades, and failures that you are helping them avoid because you're helping them think accurately. Okay. And it has to start with me and you thinking accurately first. Okay. So let me go through a few things. So it was very interesting the reason I'm sharing this is because it challenged my boundaries of my own thinking, which is, I totally appreciate that. Is my response internally when I heard Patrick Bet-David charges $200,000 for a consultation was, well, I would never need to, I wouldn't even know what to ask him right now. Other than what's your favorite cigar? And let's talk about business, but to justify $200,000, no, I'm not doing anything big enough. That's what hit me in the face. I'm not doing big enough stuff to even justify the conversation. Who's going to pay for it? That's a different conversation, because there's different ways to get access to that $200,000 or that time slot, which we're going to talk about. And it's funny, it's totally shifted my thinking on a couple things, guys, right? Is that I wasn't asking a big enough question and that's why my unconscious mind popped out. Well, you're not thinking, or like you would never, deserve is actually another, blistering kind of reality. It was like, you don't deserve to have that advice because you're not worthy of it. And I was like, well, that's kind of messed up. But the reality was, is like, well, Ed, you're not thinking big enough. And that's why, that you would even say, I'm not ready for that kind of conversation. Okay. So the first question I want to challenge all of us with is like, well, what is the question, or what is the dream, or what's the vision that would justify and make, that consultation worth 100 times that time spent together? All right. So $20 million, that's the number, right? 2 million, 10 times, 20 million is that. And when you are looking to hire a consultant, you're not looking to just get 1-to-1 ratio money back in return. You're looking for an exponential leverage point, right? So let's talk briefly about that. So when you hire someone like PBD, that's his nickname, PBD. So I'll just keep this a little bit fast. We'll be faster on this. Is you're not hiring him for his content. You're not hiring for his content. You can go to Valuetainment on YouTube, and I would say 99% of what he's going to share content related, or 90%, in a private consultation is already probably somewhere on his channel, right? So what you are, what you're buying in that 1 hour are a number of things that content can't really give you, okay? Because you could buy the books, you could buy the courses. The reason why I have always been drawn to hiring consultants sooner in a business venture journey, or finding a mentor who's already been there early, like immediately, is not the content. It's his network, right? So he's got a Rolodex that he's built up over the last 25, 26, 40 years of grinding away, right? And his network is constantly expanding, okay? And so the reason why you hire a consultant is like, who in their Rolodex is someone they can introduce you to immediately to open up, the floodgates, right? So for example, a typical company that would probably hire him is somebody that's already doing, high 7 figures minimum, right? That would be a stretch, because even at like 20% net profit, which is pretty healthy for a lot of companies, they're only making 1.4 million a year. Government takes half of that. So they're kind of battling that. So to come out of pocket for $200,000 may be a stretch for them. But if it's the right industry, right person, there's correlations to that. It's a brilliant investment, because what you're leapfrogging, and this is a smart, astute entrepreneur, business owner should be doing their homework, is like, okay, well, here's PBD's Rolodex. Okay. If he's aligned with what we're trying to accomplish, he's going to open gateways, right? And maybe he won't. By the way, I shouldn't speak on his behalf, but that's one of the things you're doing. Like when I would go hire, early on in my career, like when I was growing when I was trying to get in the information business, right? Selling, we were doing direct mail, we were selling volleyball and coaching things, right? And I upgraded that to working with business owners, specifically dentists, and teaching them how to grow their dental practices, big coaching groups, licensing. And it was my first like successful business. Some of the other things that happened prior to that were just great stepping stones that were giving me like pulses, pieces of the pie. And I made a realization that when I was learning the first part, the margins weren't big enough, the money wasn't big enough, the market wasn't big enough. So that's why I upgraded into a professional niche where they had the money, they were doing the work, they were spending dollar amounts on advertising already. They needed patients. The transaction sizes were big enough. By the way, I'm giving you like the green light market attributes for your consulting, coaching, expert business. If you're looking to continually upgrade your clients, you got to ask all those quick questions. But anyhow, I'll keep moving here. So first thing I did is, before I even got into that, is I went to these mentors and I was like, hey, can I work for free? That's the first thing I said to them. No, we don't do that. We do licensing, because they were already successful, making millions of dollars in the professional niches and business owner niches, right? And they had a course. And so they came back to me like, well, no, we don't really want you to work for free. We don't really want, what they were really saying is we don't want to like train someone for free. And that's totally cool too. But I was willing to work for free and to get my copywriting chops in play, to sell. I was willing to do whatever they wanted to do to get access to them, right? And that's one move you should have in your quiver. Like, what can I do to just create value for who I want to have access to in order to leapfrog my education, right? So that was number one. Number two is they had a course that was already done. There was nobody in dentistry. So I leapfrogged that, got in dentistry. Long story short, the reason I'm sharing that whole thing, that became my first and really successful business, working with great people, doing what I felt was really good value work for the dentists, and we were happy providing it. Did I make a ton of mistakes during that time frame? Oh my gosh, a million, right? Anyhow, but then when I went into this health supplement business, the first thing I did was look for who was already having success there. And so that is the pattern that you got to do, right? So the first thing you're looking for is who's in the network and who's going to open doors. In both cases, in the supplement world and in the dental world, it was always a strategic partner that opened my first stream of customer flow. That's something I work with our private clients on. Who's in your network now? Who's in that network? And how do we get into that network so that they will happily endorse you, so that you get your first batch of clients, customers, either through rev share agreement. You can give 100% of the revenue if it's just digital assets and you have a back end product chain. The other side of that is, or can you pay 0.5%? When I went into dentistry, Dr. Tom Arendt had a gigantic newsletter, 80,000 dentists, and he sent out my 20-page sales letter, which we probably shouldn't have done it that way. We should have lead generated, but we didn't. But anyway, what it gave me though was my first like 20 to 40 clients. Frankly, I probably lost a little bit of money on that, and I've happily lose money in customer acquisition, in a joint venture relationship to get a head start and momentum to have a customer base. Okay. And I know I'm moving really quickly on this. We can unpack a lot of these things, but it's more just the right thinking about this. Anyhow, and then when I went into supplements, I can name multiple people that through my ability to get into networks and talk to people and to create value and to, everyone's got to win. Like in fact, I would say everyone's got to win, but they got to win more than you do. Initially, they got to see like, oh my gosh, this is a great relationship, or I found a secret weapon, or like they have to be the one winning more than you, to open doorways. And by the way, doing interviews is one of the best ways to open doorways. I mean, that's one of the tools. It's one of the most powerful tools of using the interview, by the way, the $1 million interview method, which is what we do for people and work with partners as part of our consulting package. But the reason I share that is because when you go hire a consultant, you're looking for the network. And then the second thing you're looking for is the slight edge, specialized knowledge that is only specific to where you're currently at on your journey, right? And I'll give you a quick example. It's like, like before GPS's, or if you guys can all remember, like even like, was it 12 years ago when GPS and MapQuest and all these things were just kind of starting to learn. And it wasn't perfect everywhere. Like if you use like Google Earth right now, it's not perfect everywhere, right? It can't, we buy a lot of land. And when we go look at certain areas, Google Earth will give me like beautiful views of the house, the next door lot. I can do 360. It's amazing. In some remote areas, it's not as clear. That'll get better over time. Why am I sharing all this? Because when you're on your entrepreneurial journey and you're trying to grow a business, you're trying to figure out your sales thing, you're trying to get your best customers, you're trying to do all stuff. A lot of times it just looks like a mess, like a glob of mess. And you find yourself down these dirt roads, like slightly off the highway. And you get a little like misdirected. Like, am I going northwest, or am I all of a sudden going west, southwest, southeast? Like, I mean, we have a lake home in Indiana that is right by a golf course, and we go through the golf course, and I always feel like I'm going the wrong way when it's actually leading me directly to the highway, right? But if I took the left turn, like I take a left, and then if I would have stayed straight on this one road, it feels like I'm going directly to the highway, but it's actually taken me totally off course. And when I take the right, because the signs are there, it directs me right through there. Now the phone now can help me do that, but they weren't that good just 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years ago. Which leads me to, again, like when you go into a consultation, you're trying to like lay out, this is where I'm at. A good consultant should ask you like, okay, let's go over your, like your dream, your vision. What's ideally you want this to look like? Give me your business numbers, your marketing numbers. Let's go over your team, where you spend the most amount of time. What do you love doing, like doing, hate doing, and should never do again? Okay, we look at that. Where you spend too much time that's not pouring in the cash into your life, into your business. Can we replace that? Can we stop doing that? Like, those are all really good questions that those aren't like, oh, we got to do all the stuff. It's actually just the opposite. So I've always found with high achievers, one of the first things you got to do is you got to remove friction. Like, how do we remove friction? When I work with athletes and coach, like I'm always trying to like remove friction from their lives, because high achievers are already pressing, right? You don't need to add motivation. If I got to add motivation and you're trying to win a national title, we got problems, right? We got problems. Most of the time when kids start experiencing burnout, or high performers experiencing burnout, it's because they're spending too much time doing things that are just not in their what they should be doing, frankly, right? We're asking them to do stupid stuff that's not relevant to performing at a high level. But if you can get certain people like, hey, we're just going to get them in the zone to perform at a high level, guess what? They're having more fun. They're more creative. They are more excited. And the same is true for us as entrepreneurs, right? So that's number one, is the network. And you can't all you did was hire someone like PBD and say, look, I got 1 hour with you. I'm like, I know certain people. What would have to happen in order for you to feel super, super comfortable introducing me to these people? And I want to tell you, I'm going to spend the next 58 minutes explaining why that introduction is not only going to make you bring 100 times more value to their life and cement your relationship with them. See, these are identity. You're making sure the identity's straight up, and you make sure the reputation's intact, and you make sure that the final outcome for everybody is exponentially better than what you think it is for yourself. And from that negotiating perspective, it should be a no-brainer. Otherwise, your product service fit relationship is just not really backing up what it is. Okay. So that's number one. Now, that's a pretty overt way of doing that. The covert way of doing that is like, hey, the probably more realistic is, I don't know exactly who might be in your network or whatever, but you've gone down this pathway, and I'm sure you've already handled this. Like in the food business, the business that didn't work out for me, I would say it failed. The operations and logistics of cold shipping should have been locked in, figured out, and dialed in at the margin level before we started taking orders. And in some fairness, that's when COVID hit as well. So it was a little weird time of life. Like most frozen containment places weren't taking customers. I was like, well, shit, man, we got sales coming in, we got product coming in. It was a really crazy time. And there's so many good lessons in that as well, which brings me to my third point. You're hiring a consultant to buy their lessons and their failures. You're not necessarily buying their successes. And so a lot of times what you don't see is what they've experienced, that it's not they're afraid to share it. It just might not be something they're sharing. I'll give you a quick example. Sorry for the dogs. Sorry for the dogs. Someone's swinging by with some coffee, so maybe that's what it is. A friend of mine who makes all his money in real estate, rents out homes, was just kind of expressing to me a frustration frustration. And then he shared an idea. He's like, one of the things that we're able to do, I don't know, let me pause this real quick. Try and remember where I was at. So, the biggest thing is you're learning from their failures. And a friend of mine was just telling me how he found this new business opportunity in real estate. His buddies run big apartment buildings and they buy a lot of a certain type. I'm not going to say what it is, a certain equipment. And he figured out how to arbitrage the equipment. And he's like, what I'm just trying to figure out is like, how do I get the product from the direct manufacturer to this person if I'm a wholesaler or if I'm like private labeling it? And I was like, you just tell them that direct shipped it, man. You put your sticker on it and they direct shipped it. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, no, that's what you do. It's for the size of orders you're doing it. You just do that. You say, look, this is what I need done. And if they can't do that, you say, like, okay, where's a logistics center, like a shipping center that they work with already, that they have a track record with that can intake it and output it quickly. The problem with that is that it now increases your margin because you're going to have intake and outtake pick pack fees there all in one location. So you want to reduce that, right? But some manufacturers might not be shipping centers, but they're buying enough, and he's got to figure all that out. And he's like, well, if I had to, I would jump on a flight and I would go there and I would just pick up the stuff in a truck and drive it. I'm like, stop what you're talking about. I went down that pathway during my food brand because I had to. And in hindsight, when I look at like when the business like closed and failed, a lot of that extra effort was just stupid. Like if I look at it, like those were to me at times, I looked at them as I was grinding through things and overcoming obstacles, which I was. And I had a destination in mind and certain funding had to kick in. And the margins, we just couldn't get the margins where we need them to be is really what happened. Because the marketing sales were popping them out. And you had an overcasting of COVID, which was preventing a lot of some of the support roles from helping. And then one of my support relationships, they're in the middle of like getting acquired for multiple 9 figures. And I thought I was going to be able to utilize some of their frozen services or piggyback them, which would have been amazing, actually, which would have actually led into us growing it and getting acquired by the same food brand they got acquired for. But it didn't happen, right? And so, but the thing is on that is what when you hire like someone, that is what you're doing. You're asking, you're shortcutting your life because they're going to tell you like, don't do that. No, don't do that. No, don't stop doing that. Like, hey, this is what you need to do. You need to cut out this whole division or where all this focus and effort and time and energy is, because you have no clarity on where it's going to go. Your margins aren't good. You're not happy with it. It doesn't bring you joy, energy, and hope, and excitement. Like those slight distinctions, right? So, okay. So what did I talk about? The network's number one. The specialized knowledge in getting you back on the highway of life. Number 2. Number 3 is you're leapfrogging their failures, right? So when you present your whole business plan and your thinking, which a great consultant, by the way, is going to have a framework to help you think through things. If they don't, years ago, I had a mentor that I was in this coaching club, and strong emphasis on copywriting and marketing. Okay. One of the things you got with part of his 25K group was you get to come out to his house once a year. I love the guy, right? His offstage persona is completely different than his onstage persona. Where when you're with me, I'm pretty much the same person everywhere I go. I've never wanted to have it just doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, I could do a whole different podcast on my thoughts on that. You'd show up at his house and he would just be like, all right, what do you want to talk about today? And then I'd have to have my list. Now, listen, you're a highly motivated, organized person who's running a business that has a lot of stuff going on. You're probably doing your studying on your own. You're probably doing like the 90-day year, the 12-week year, a great book. You probably have some levels of personal expectation, whether it's going through Brian Tracy stuff, whether it's going through PVD's business planning stuff, which is amazing, by the way. And like, you're probably doing all that stuff. So for a consultant to just be like, okay, what do you want to talk about today? You could probably ride that out and make it happen. Now, my friend Roland Frazier, when he does consulting, he's got a very structured thing. Now, if you don't want to go down that route, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about, right? But I like looking, when I work with people, especially with the interview method, when we're going to do an interview together, I want to know exactly what outcome you're looking for and what success looks like and how this fits in your business, how you see it working. How do you see this doubling, tripling, quadrupling sales, bringing in better clients for your life? Because those are questions that, frankly, you may have not have asked for yourself, right? Like, what is the question that we need to ask? And if the question is like, well, I'll give you a quick example, right? I was talking to my mentor, Travis Silo, yesterday, and I said, hey, the response to the $1 million interview method has been amazing. Like, we got really good clients coming in. We got people reaching out, asking for more information, or how like they want to know more about it. Like, what's the $1 million interview method? By the way, if they're not asking about your thing's not like grabbing them. Does that make sense? If they're not asking about how do I hire you or how do we work together, the content you're putting out is just content that's not designed to boomerang them. Like, I'm going to post a video today called the boomerang method. I've already recorded it. I may need to re-record it to update it for 2023, but like it is the ultimate, like when you send out content, your job is to create a boomerang effect, not just to shout at the ocean. So then they go buy from somebody else. Most experts, influencers, content creators, consultants, coaches, high ticket salespeople, we see this a lot in our dental clients, is they talk about the value of dental implants. No one really so why should I work with you? Well, the implants are great. I see Clear Choices doing it. I see my own dentist is doing it, right? There's a million options out here. So we have to tell stories in such a way that bring people back to us. Anyhow, I can get off topic, but I think it's all important. Moving on. Okay, so when we do that, one of the questions we want to ask people is like, hey, so what are the questions that we got to ask in order to justify the consultation? Quick example. I was talking to Travis yesterday, and I said, hey, anybody who's got an offer over 5,000, 15,000, 25,000, 65,000, it should be a no-brainer for us to do an interview together, because of the assets we're creating, the converting assets. Like you're building a wealth asset for the rest of your life, because it's going to go on YouTube, go on Facebook, it's going to go in your funnel, it's going to go on IG, it's going to go wherever you want to syndicate this out. We're working through how do we help people create like little 12 to 15 page books, one problem, one solution books, based on the interview, that we can syndicate through Amazon to generate leads for you. Like, just it would be another asset that goes into and plugs in, because we want to get away from trading just effort, energy for cash. We want to build assets as we're moving, right? And that's the whole point. I said it's a no-brainer for people if they have a 5,000, 7,500, 15,000. I already said that, all up to 100,000 plus offer, right? Like PVD, a great pitch to him would be like, look, hey man, I think more people should be spending $200,000 on your consultation. And how about we raise it to 250, and then we do an interview together, and we target 100 people that should be hiring you, whether it's for speaking or for this, and we just FedEx them all, and then we do that for 12 months. I mean, think about that. What's that going to cost? 100 times 12 is what? Do the math. $1,200. All of us could be doing that right now. Dream list of 100, $12, FedEx them all, boom. With skip tracing and stuff, you could have somebody text message. I mean, you could do a lot of fancy stuff if you know where they live, geolocation, you could be running retargeting ads right over their house. You can run over the whole area, and you don't really care about the whole area. You're running YouTube ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, LinkedIn ads, Twitter ads. Most people are plugged in at some level, guys, right? You could do a one episode podcast that is only for them. I've never even heard of that before. Never heard of that before. Flipping send a carrier to where like if it's worth $250,000, you could spend 25 grand to get the person's attention, right? Just raise your rates by the amount you're willing to spend. So anyhow, see how fun this is? Like, see how fun this is now that you're thinking bigger, all of a sudden stuff starts to pop and you're like, okay, cool. Well, my speaking fee is $70,000. Well, why isn't your speaking fee or $500,000, $400,000, $300,000? And you might be like, well, that's way too high. I don't want to I like speaking more often. I have a friend, I'm going to keep his name out of it, but he charged way less for like a good 18 months. So everybody wanted him on a stage. And then after that just totally consumed his life. What do? He raised his rates to $35,000, right? So there's a little bit of that, but he doesn't need to do that, right? Now, you, on the other hand, you're trying to build a client base, right? So here's one thing I would share with you. If somebody is willing to spend $3,000 on your consulting or coaching or whatever, they're willing to spend $9,000, okay? And if they're willing to spend $5,000, they're willing to spend $25,000, okay? Now, do we need to structure it a certain way? Do we got to talk about installments? Do we got to talk? I mean, the answer might be, yeah, you will, and it's okay. Or we got to up level and upgrade who we're targeting, right? So one of the things I did when I was working with a client was I said, hey, look, I'm like, let's figure out. So we're trying to figure out like what would be the $100,000 package. We were selling a 7,500. Thinking of the math here. I think it was 7,000, 9,000, and then he had a $25,000 or $35,000 upgrade, which I wasn't really a part of, which ultimately is probably why we didn't continue working together, because I had no incentive to grow that full channel. And so one of the ideas I came up with is I said, well, let's create a $100,000 program. Let's create a $100,000 program. Let me do some digging, and I'll come back to you. And so what I did was, I said, well, who would be perfect for like $100,000 program? And you could make it 50,000. It doesn't have to be perfect, guys. We're just playing around with numbers, right? And I said, well, if somebody's netting $1 million a year right now before they work with us, and my little guy, you can come say hi, Eddie. My little guy's home with strep today. That's why I'm shooting. Come say hi to everybody. Let's go. It's my guy. You say hi. Look in the camera. Hi. Say have a great day, everybody. But if they're already making, say, $1 million or $500,000, because like you're doing the math there. So my pitch to you would be like, hey, if you're already making $500,000 a year, and you join our elite level or VIP level at 100,000 a year, that's before we inject the specialized knowledge, our network, our relationships, our failures, and we sit down and work. And now you can build out a real program where it's more face-to-face group. I mean, now think about this. Now the pitch goes, you're not just sitting there with the guys who paid $5,000, you're sitting there with only the guys that pay 100,000. I would be willing to bet now, forgive me, Tony, if you ever listen to this, but like, I'd be willing to bet that Tony Robbins's content is not revolutionarily different for people who pay $3,000 versus the 100,000. I would be willing to bet that the questions in the room are just such a different level that then the specialized knowledge becomes exponentially better. But also, more importantly, you're sitting in the room with people that are willing to invest $100,000 in themselves. Now, let's break that out. Like, well, I mean, even if I make $1 million, I don't want to write a check for 100,000. Well, not a problem. Okay. So what can you write a check for today that would allow you to feel comfortable with this investment? Oh, well, I can write a check for 15,000 to hold my spot, and then, divide 11 divided by the remainder, 85,000. Now we're looking at what? I mean, I'm not going to do the math and embarrass myself on this training, but you're looking at like 7,500. Let's just say it's 7,500 or 8,000. Let's go 8,000 flat, right? You're like 8,800, 85, 3, whatever. And then what happens there, guys, is amazing is you're going to get better conversion rates, because most people that are making anything over 200,000, $250,000 a year should be able to write a check for anywhere between 8,500 to 15,000 without it dramatically negatively impacting their life. Okay. So think about what I just said. I just took the PBD range of we're going to charge 100 grand, and I brought it down to like your level where it's like, well, I want to charge 15,000. Okay. Well, what would not negatively impact a person's life? You want a little bit of pain. I mean, you want that, like, it's the whole, like, they're not going to take it as serious if it's just easy. Like, if it's $97 a month and they never have to like actually commit to it or be serious, or have, do the work. It's like where the pros, where the amateurs go to die is in that club. Where the pros go to, soar is over here, right? Should write that down. It's actually not bad. And anyhow, so I'm sharing all that because now what I was able to do is I went back to our database and I sent out an email that said, hey, if you net over 500K to 100 to 1 million, 1 MM a year, that was the subject line. And then it was, hey, it's Ed. So-and-so and I are thinking of hashing up something really cool just for people who net over 500,000 to 1 million. And I might have thrown in a benefit there, but it was that simple. And wanted to see if you'd be interested to be a part of this elite and exclusive group. I think I said, just send me a note. Yes. And I'll ping you with details. I didn't have any details, right? So I got a bunch of people coming back to me. So now what's really important about this, I didn't really mean this to be a full training, but what's really important about this is that what happened is, I got to get a whiteboard here, I was able to immediately see out of, say, I'm just making this number up. Let's say out of the 1,000 people I email, I now had a super, super hot list of 12 people. There might have been more, there might have been less, right? So I'm looking to design the ultimate program for these guys. So some people would say like, well, let's just create a bunch of offers and put in a bunch of content. They don't want fucking content. These guys don't want content. These are your mother truckers that are so busy that the only way you're going to get access to them is through a podcast and a FedEx and a punch in the face and being all over them. Like, not in a jerk way, but the only way you're going to get these guys to exchange money is you got to solve a big problem they have, which is time is one of them. I can guarantee it, right? If they're hustling and growing, I mean, my most stressful time in my life was the year our company scaled to 30 million. Most stressful time in my life. What I needed at that point, honestly, was a really good mentor. Okay. And actually what I needed at the time was someone who knew how to hire a CTO, because I hired the wrong CTO. Long story, different podcast. Anyhow, so what a lot of people do wrong here, and this goes with experts, coaches, consultants, business owners, all kinds, right? They all do this wrong, right? They create a program based on what they think these people are going to want. Like, I could sit there and I can tell you right now, like what these guys want is they need more free time. They need more leverage in their life. They they're probably looking to upgrade. So if they're netting $1 million, they probably want to make three or more. So they're looking for networks. Okay. They're probably slightly frustrated and a little lonely because they no longer can sit in like the big 100-person groups. They want 25-person or less, but they want to make sure the 25-person or less are filled with jam-packed people that are badasses. Like they don't want to waste time talking to somebody who's like, well, I'm thinking of getting my first sale and I'm getting my offer out. And they're like, no offense to you if that's where you're at. We're all there. We're all there at all the time because we're always inventing our next new offer at some level. So there's no judgment from me on that. I'm just saying, like, the guy who's already cranking out that much, he's got a different set of problems. So I can assume all those things, right? But if I'm like trying to like build a program out of this and I want the sales to crush, what do you think I do? Hey, John, Ed here. I want to send you over what we're thinking of. Do you mind sending me a text? And when you have 12 minutes, I want to make sure this is perfect for you. And so I'd love your feedback. And so what immediately happens is, instead of me selling stuff, I come from a place of total service for this guy. And he jumps on, he's like, I'm like, hey, so-and-so and I are doing this thing. I really want to make sure it's perfect for you. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your business? And guys, I'm telling you, you won't be able to stop them from talking. They will talk and talk and talk and talk. And they will tell you like, well, here's the problem. And this is the stuff you're going to start getting. Like, we got 4 kids. I got 2 in college, 1 in high school, 1 in grade school. My wife and I are currently separated. I'm flipping working. I can't figure this out. I'm trying to get to this space. And this is where they always will go. What I'd really like to do is, or I'd really like to do with the business is. And so what you found there is like, what do they want to escape and where do they want to go? And all I'm doing is taking notes. So I was building my whole future sales pitch. Because I'm not going to pitch it. I could pitch the guy right there, but that's not the purpose on my 12 minutes. How I will pitch him though is I'll go, hey, John, I just want to make sure I fully understand this. So do you mind if I just read a few things back to you? You tell me what I'm getting, I'm like a little off on, or I'm getting right. Okay. Yeah, no problem, man. Cool. Okay, cool. So I'm understanding, and this is from my old NLP background, but like, you don't I read back his words verbatim and I try and do it at the same sequence that he shared them with me. Okay. Hey, so what I'm understanding is you got all this crazy stuff going on. And see, that's not even fair to say. Because to say it's crazy, that would be me what do you call it? Summarizing it. And I don't want to do that. I want to be like, hey, so be very objective. Like, hey, so you got 4 kids, you got these payments coming in, you have some stuff going on with your wife. And what I'm hearing you say is, you said you would like to have X amount of time, blah, blah, blah. And what would be perfect is where you'd really like to be is bam, 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 bam. And I go right through it. And he's either going to light up like a Christmas tree, which means I did that properly, or he's going to be like, well, and then when he does that, I'm like, okay, cool. Explain that. And then let them clarify it. Boom. Okay. That's okay. So then I reiterate it. And I'm like, okay, so if so-and-so and I created this package and program for you, is that something you jump in and be fully on board with? Yeah, I'm in. Now, when you get that type of commitment, even before he knows the price, because I can even say like, it's not going to be cheap. We're kind of hanging around some numbers, but based on where you're at, I know it's something you can easily afford, or something you can afford, and blah, blah, blah. Are you in? When you get a plus high driven person commit, I'm in, 80% of them are literally going to be in, even when you flip them back the pricing. Okay. Hey, John, so here's what we decided. It's going to be $100,000. Now, I understand you got a few different things going on, so we can work with you on installments. And I can give you a couple options. You tell me what works best for you. And they're going to come back to you like, no, I'll pay 85,000 right now, and I'll take the $15,000 discount. Or they'll say, yeah, just here's my credit, here's my Amex, swipe it for 15K. And then, yes, I understand that. Or they'll be like, hey, can we do, and then they let them modify it. I mean, if think about this, guys, this is where people always get this wrong. If they truly are somebody who's doing that, everyone's had cash flow issues or everyone's had this, and they're like, well, hey, and I'm gonna be committed. I'm gonna go to all 3 events. I'll be at the weekly call. If I'm not at the weekly call, I will promise to check in, like whatever your rule structures is, create a high level group. And but cash is king. Everybody's worried about cash. The smart guys are thinking about cash. So 100 grand over a year is way better than for a lot of people 85K cash right now, because they don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Like in that guy's situation, he may end up getting divorced, whereas then he'll need the 85K cash to pay his attorney and his wife and to make sure the kids are taken care of as they figure out whatever's going on, and he's got to keep the business afloat. So, hey man, I understand you're going through this right now. Let's just do this. Instead of 15K up front, let's just do 12K. And you're one of our guys, we'll push you out 14 months. Is that cool with you? Yeah. Now, I know people who disagree with my framework there, but that's how you double your fees, get more people coming in. You will have a very low dropout rate. When those guys drop out, you reach out to them. Hey man, do you need me to pause this right now? Where are we at? And if, as long as they're communicating, you can keep the door open. If they don't communicate with you and they ghost you, well, then they did you a favor, because now we put them on the other list, which is the list that they never are allowed to do business with us ever again. Now, do we believe in repentance? Can we support people as they come back? Yes, right? But anyhow, that's how you do it. So anyhow, in recap, right? So how do you justify spending money on things like $100,000, $250,000, $15,000, $25K? Is you got to look at it in the bigger picture perspective of like, ask a bigger question. Like for us, so I have a client, I'll tell you about it, one of our $1 million interview method clients. They came back to me, they're like, Ed, I want to do this right now, but I just can't write a check for 15 grand. I said, not a problem. What's going on? And first of all, I don't take people that are brand new and can't afford the 15 grand. He could afford the 15 grand. His business is just cash tight. Not a problem. $7,500 down payment, and then do 2 installments work for you? Yeah. Okay, cool. If I do the interview in 30 days and I only have, I'm making this number up, 10,000 in my bank account, and the guy ghosts me, he did me a favor, guys. He did me a favor, but I think I'm going to transform like his business, and he's going to have a great asset. It's going to grow his business. It's just going to he's not going to ghost me. First of all, I don't think that way, but I know some of you think that, and I can never do that. I need to get all the money up front. I don't want to be chasing people. There's CRMs that could do this shit for you guys. Come on, like make it easy for people to buy from you. Okay. The right people. And I just showed you how to segment out people, like double your prices. If you're doing 3,000, 5,000, your challenge today is to create a $25,000, $35,000, $55,000 package. You might never sell it this year, but create that package so that it allows your brain to think bigger, right? And if you're selling $50,000 packages, well, guess what? 4 of those would allow you to go pay Patrick Bet-David $200,000 for a consultation. So look at that. We just made more money for everybody, right? So that's it. Have an amazing day. If you'd like to work with me personally, just go ahead and private message me or shoot me an email over at edokeefeshow@gmail.com. If you want one of my team members to get back to you, you can. We're on Facebook. Facebook's probably the fastest way to get a hold of one of us for I have team members on it right now. Our email is something we get back to really quickly. I should have a phone number popping up right here as well. Please subscribe to our channel. I'm going to do more stuff like this coming out. And if you have a certain topic you want me to chat on, rap on, and hopefully create value for you, let me know. And we have a free Facebook group called Coaching and Consulting 2023. I think it's big ticket. I may change that name because We are working with medical professionals as well, a lot. But big ticket 2023, you could type in Ed O'Keefe and I'll be there. We have a lot of really good content in that free Facebook group. And then also on YouTube, we have a ton of free content at the Ed O'Keefe Show, which is something we're about to start ramping up again and creating our own little tribe of people, because I think the market's missing some really good practical things you can do right away to grow your coaching, consulting, and high ticket business and help more people. So have an amazing day. Make sure you go follow Valuetainment, Patrick Bet-David. Go buy one of his books. And that's it. Peace out, everybody. Bye-bye.